and welcome back to this mini-series on playing lead electric guitar in worship. If you haven't checked out the previous videos, I'd really encourage you to do that just because we're building up from video to video. Now, in this video, we're going to take a quick look at lead electric guitar tones. Now, I'm going to start off about talking about amps. So it's really important to set your EQ on your amp for Sunday. What's slightly annoying is that what can sound really good by yourself in your bedroom, for example, can often disappear in a mix. So it's important, for example, not to use too much bass, and especially if you're playing lead guitar, because it can make you disappear into what the keys and the bass player is doing. But it does sound great in your room though, so do experiment there. Middle and treble frequencies are much more the focus for lead guitar playing, because they're what get us heard and help us cut through the mix, while a little bit of bass is needed just to make sure we don't sound completely really thin. Now, it's really important when, in terms of treble, trying to get a balance between the neck and bridge pickups. I always try and aim when I'm dialing my amps in to try and get a tone that when I'm playing by myself, my bridge pickup is a little bit too bright, but when I play in a band, actually that brightness helps me cut through and be heard at rehearsal or on Sunday. And it sounds a little bit rubbish when it's by yourself, but trust me, that is the sweet spot, I find. But do feel free to give it a little tweak in rehearsal. Try not to come to rehearsal with no idea how you want your amps or pedal board sounding, but try and get to know your gear well enough so that if you can hear something sounds a little off, you know exactly which knob or button to reach for to tweak it to get it just into the right spot. And after a few meeting and really importantly, a few pieces of feedback from PA guys, you'll know what works well with your guitar and your gear and what doesn't. As well as EQ in amps, it's also important to make sure your gain knob is set in the right place, as it's probably the most powerful control out of all of your gear. Now, while cranking the gain and making it really distorted sounds great in your bedroom and in many other music styles, in worship it can take away from some of your dynamic control and actually make clean tones for quieter parts more difficult to achieve. Instead, in worship music, what most people aim for is what's called the edge of breakup, which is when the tone goes from kind of a clean tone and to just as it's beginning to get some overdrive sound. This is good because it means you can push the amp with a boost or overdrive pedal into getting more gain and distortion out of the amp, but also allows for the same pedal to add some volume to your playing and get you a little bit louder. But if your amp is already overdriving lows, you can't actually use any pedals or do anything to kind of really sound louder. But on the edge of breakup, you're at this brilliant point where the amps sound good and the overdrive sound great, but you can also boost the volume for riffs and other parts. So as well as using your amp, you can get a lot of really great tone from just using your guitar's knobs and switches. And they're actually possibly, in my opinion, some of the most underrated tools in the lead guitarist arsenal. I always find my neck pickup is really great for times where I need to be in the background of a part. So if you're doing swells, for example, or playing in something in a verse or a down bridge, you can utilize the neck pickup to sit in the background. And you can do a similar job with your guitar's tone knob. But how that reacts depends on your guitar and your guitar's pickups. So you'll learn over time what is best for your guitar and your style of playing. But do give it a go. Do some experimentation. The bridge pickup, on the other hand, is awesome for parts where you want to be heard. The bridge pickup is always going to be brighter, meaning that you'll stand out and cut through the mix more. Also, in most guitars, the bridge pickup has a slightly higher output, meaning that it will come across as louder or cause your sound to overdrive more. And using different pickups is one of the best ways for your guitar to sound different for different parts without having to buy any extra pedals. So it's a really key one. I'd really encourage you to kind of get to know them. Now, pedals. Speaking of which, you have a few different types of pedals. I'm going to start off with talking about gain pedals. For example, overdrives, distortions, boost. I already mentioned the gain knob on your amp, but overhead pedals work in a very similar way as your amp to add some gain. But you can kind of, for example, for some parts, step on an overdrive pedal and it will make your guitar sound bigger and maybe cut through the mix some more. and that can be really helpful. A boost pedal can also be really handy, as I mentioned before, for lifting the volume, or even if you put it before another overdrive pedal, you can actually cause that overdrive pedal to overdrive more and kind of make it sound dirtier and yeah, a bit squishier, which can be a really good sound. I would certainly experiment and get to know your pedals and get to understand where different overdrive and boost sounds fit best within different parts of a set, and also do that when listening to music. Try and figure out where different guitar players use different sounds for different parts of the set. Modulation pedals, for example, chorus and tremolo, I mainly use for adding a little bit of space and movement to my sound, and maybe some interest. So it's a really cool effect that you can use maybe for specific parts, or just making the simple parts you're playing really interesting. Now, delay and reverb, wet effects. In worship music, we tend to use these pretty much all the time. But again, with the delay and reverb that you have access to, it's really important to try and understand it with all your pedals and all your gear as best you can, so that when you're trying to maybe change to a different sound, you know exactly how to get that sound from your pedal, and how, or whatever gear it is, so that you know how to best fit in and best serve the song, the sound, the situation, and ultimately God through all the tools we have available to us. So I just want to thank you for coming to this video, and in the next video I'll be giving you a little playthrough of a song to try and demonstrate a lot of the techniques that I've mentioned in this mini-series. So thank you very much for joining me, and I'll see you next time.